Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics. Today I'm going to be doing another SketchUp model build. I'm going to be building a model of one of the spaces that's going to be used in some of the scenes in my upcoming Spectre Comics Issue 7. Now normally when I build a space, it's because I haven't yet kind of set the scene, but this is actually a space that I used in Issue 5. But in Issue 7 we're going to be doing a bunch more scenes in that space, and I thought it would be helpful to have a 3D model built so I can have a nice reference. And, you know, in some cases I actually clip a view and I'll put it in my comic page, trace the background environment, and it really helps level up my backgrounds and the background scenes. Now I use SketchUp for a lot of things in my comics. I'll use them for exterior buildings. I'll create buildings and I'll model them and then I'll put them in background scenes. If I'm in a city environment, or I'll design a ship, and the ship, you know, whether it's a spaceship or a land vehicle, I'll design that vehicle and then I can use it in a lot of different scenes. I have a lot of different space battle scenes in some of the earlier issues. I built a bunch of the ships in 3D, and then I was able to kind of rotate them and get the ships from interesting dynamic angles, something that I wouldn't have been able to come up in my head. You know, even though I have the ship designed and I know what it looks like, being able to rotate it 360 degrees all the way around, getting different views of it, just really helps just really level up, you know, your comic pages and your art in your comics. So that's how I use it. We're going to be building a model of the engineering lab that's on the Spectre ship, the Zebulon. And it, like I said, I already used this scene and I had designed it just by drawing a simple one-point perspective in issue number 5. But in issue 7, there's going to be more events taking place in the engineering lab. So I'm also going to have a bunch more characters that are in the environment, and it'll be just nice to know where they are, and it just helps me kind of visualize where to set the camera, where the characters are standing, how they're related to each other, how they're related to the things in the space, how they interact with the various elements in the space. We'll get through the design of the space as I kind of talk about what we're putting in the model here. So the space I'm actually creating here in SketchUp is an engineering lab on the Zebulon. The Zebulon is the Spectre main ship that they travel all over the universe in. So the lab is very simple. It's a symmetrical long room. It basically contains computer monitors, touchscreens, where they can run diagnostics on both sides of the room, and then it's got a center table with a console where they can interact with all of the computer systems, all the systems of the ship. And then at the far end of the lab is the power coil, which powers the Zebulon. I don't know anything engineering wise on how the ship is powered, but in my fantasy made up comic world, that's what that core does. That's what the coil does. So, and then at the far end is a entrance from the main hallway to the engineering lab. So because I'm going to be setting up the camera on the opposite end from the coil for the most part, you know, there may be scenes where I rotate around in the room. Even though I will have an entrance, it's going to be kind of pulled away so that I can set the camera up where that entrance would be. So the SketchUp model took me about 2 hours to build. I'm actually using the free cloud version of SketchUp that you can get online. I set up an account with my Google account, and then I can use SketchUp to create all the different models and save them as files. I can copy between them. So it's very nice. So I actually duplicated an existing file that I already had for one of the other environments that I built on the same ship, the tube room, which was featured a lot in issue 6. And because I wanted to make the architecture kind of relate to each other, because it's on the same vessel, there should be similar shared elements, such as the door should look the same. I was able to just put that model off to the side, save the file as a new file for the engineering lab, and then I can actually copy elements so that like I said, the architecture looks the same and consistent, and the design of the Zebulon is interior-wise is consistent throughout. So basically, I just started by creating a floor plane and then creating the table, the console table in the middle. And what I like to do when I create these SketchUp models is basically get the various pieces, put them together, and then just create a group. This is typically how you do it. The thing about SketchUp is it's very sticky, so if you don't create groups, it doesn't treat the group as an element, and things will push and pull the various lines. If you like move a line that's part of attached to another line, it'll actually pull the other line with it. So you create these groups and it creates a block element that you can move around, copy, rotate, and do all these other things with. And I like to do things as efficiently as possible. So because this room's symmetrical, I wanted to just build one side of the wall on the room. For the most part, just built the wall, got it as detailed as possible. And as soon as I built that side of the room, I could just basically make a block of it, group it together, copy it over, mirror it, and then just slap it together. And now I've got both sides of the room created and they look exactly the same. So now the model that I created is very detailed block-wise, but it doesn't have all the detail. It doesn't have textures. I keep the models simple, just black and white. There's no color. There's no textures involved. I'm not trying to define materials in these models. I'm just trying to create a space that I can use as a background overlay that I can trace and create the environments in my comic. Now, in cases where I will be adding detail into the space, such as the screens will have things on them, the consoles will have little displays on them, there may be materials kind of indicated, there may be a pattern on the floor. Those are the kinds of things I can add in later if it's part of the scene. If I have a close-up of the console, I like to show things on the console, and I'll make that stuff up as I go. As I said, the far end of the room has the power coil that powers the ship, and it basically looks like a long cylinder with some various elements attached to it, and that is what generates power for the ship, allows it to go in hyperspace, and all that fun scientific stuff that you typically see in science fiction type comics or movies or TV shows. So, that's what I'm basically doing here. Now, I do have, as I said, I do have a scene that I'm working on where there's a bunch of robots in here trying to run some diagnostics, trying to figure out an engineering problem. So they are kind of in the room talking to each other. And this allows me to grab different screen grabs of the room, rotate it around, set the characters up where I want them, make sure each character, as they move through the space, as they interact with the various panels, as they talk to each other, it just gives me a great opportunity to kind of see what that all looks like before I do final drawings. And like I said, I will clip various views from the SketchUp model. I'll just snip it into my comic and then trace it over, and then turn that layer off or delete it. And then I'll get the background exactly what I want. And then at that point, I can add the detail that I want into the scene. So I like using this because I do believe that it levels up my art. It makes my scenes more consistent. It helps me visualize the story better because I see the environments that the character is moving through. I love building these environments out of SketchUp. I love creating models in SketchUp to use. And I just think it's a great tool to just add a bunch of consistency and better artwork. You still have to design, you still have to think of it, but seeing it in 3D, and sometimes actually when you're just designing things, being able to build it in 3D really helps you kind of make decisions on the design. You may see something you like, you may draw something, sketch something really quick in your sketchbook, and then when you build it, it just doesn't look really good. I actually had a previous model, the previous SketchUp model I did was a little land vessel that I designed for another scene in this same comic. And now that I see it in 3D, there's actually some pieces of the design that I don't like, and I'm going to change before I get to the final drawing portion of my comic once I start inking. So we're making great progress on Spectre Comics Issue 7. I'm just using these models now. I'm creating these models now to, once I get to the inking part, I'm going to be needing all these models to help set the scenes and the various elements in the comic. So here's a scene from issue 5 of what this space looked like. Now, the nice thing was I was able to design this a long time ago, so I didn't have to waste any time designing now because this room was already kind of conceived. But there are upcoming scenes in this comic, which I'm going to have to start from scratch and create a model from that I have never drawn before. And that's going to be a fun process because even though I know what happens in each scene, seeing it in 3D will just really help me picture what everything looks like, where all the characters are standing, where they're moving through, how they exit the room, where they're going, how one element connects to the other. I've got exterior environments built of the same thing, but how does the space look inside? So this will be a fun process, and I will continue to build models, make more. I do have a SketchUp playlist, so I'm going to link that in the end screen. So go ahead if you want to see more SketchUp models and how I use them in the various scenes of my comic to build ships, other environments, buildings, go ahead and check out that playlist. So that's it for this video. Go ahead and like the video if you use SketchUp in your art, and like it if you don't also. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'll be posting more SketchUp content in the upcoming weeks because I'm going to have to build a lot more models for upcoming scenes in comic issue 7 that I'm working on now. I will have a link to the playlist in the end screen of this video, so go ahead and check out other SketchUp videos. And stay tuned for more comics, art, and SketchUp videos upcoming in the coming months. So I appreciate you watching. Thank you. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.